Okay, so welcome to today's workshop on perfectionism, and we'll start with um, a little exercise in pairs, and it's called the Affektbilanz. Let me just quickly share my screen for this. Where is it? Um, Hang on. Which one is it? That's actually not that easy. How does it work? Zwei, Bildschirm 2. Okay. Okay. Do you see my screen?
Mhm.
Ja? Okay. Also, Affektbilanz. Wie geht es dir heute? This was like a game that my mediation trainer would annoy me every week. And I thought it was really annoying and also really valuable at the same time. I did not enjoy that much, but we'll check it out. It's just like to, okay, where are we? How are we feeling right now? And it's a very simple exercise. Um, it's about pleasant and unpleasant feelings. Okay. I don't want to say negative and positive. It's just because feelings are pleasant and unpleasant. And so the question is, how intense and noticeable are your unpleasant and pleasant feelings today at this very moment? Um, and we take a moment and choose two numbers, a number between 0 and 100. And you just like feel the number. You just like, okay, how am I feeling for unpleasant between 0 and 100? Can be 20, can be 50, can be 80, whatever feels right. We do the same for the positive. Yeah. Important, those two numbers don't have to add up to 100. You can say 70 for positive and 50 for negative. It just have to be two numbers between 0 and 100. Okay? Just take a second and pick two numbers. How do you feel as far as unpleasant feelings go and pleasant feelings? Which number between 0 and 100 would you pick for either one? Take 20 seconds to feel the right number. Like this. And then we explain those two numbers and the feelings behind them to the partner. Okay? So remember your number and just explain why did you pick 30? Why did you pick 70? Just explain how you're feeling, what is going on right now in your life, right now, in this today, whatever you want at the time frame, you can pick yourself. Just explain that number. We'll take about 5, 6 minutes for this. Um, okay. And we just get a randomly assigned person to do this with. Okay. Clear what we'll do?
Yeah.
Yeah? Marcus? Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
We'll take about 5 minutes to do this. Okay, just explain what's going on. 5, 6 minutes. Okay, let's start.
Do we have to have to explain ourselves and the topic in English, or do we have to speak it in German?
You can do as you want. If you're with a person whose German's really good, like with Tim, for example, or Badi, you guys can talk in German.
Yeah,
Yeah?
we talked in German. Of course, it wasn't really easy for us to like have all the words, but we tried our best, and it was really
I think
cool.
that's great. Whenever you are in a group where you feel like you can do this to speak in German, that's why you have the level, you know? That's so like you can decide, okay, I think that should work. You're invited to speak German all the time if you want. Sorry, totally, I mean, we do this to improve our German, but it's
Yeah.
not a German class, but yeah, please do. Okay, any other questions, comments?
That was also really interesting since like when you have the same numbers with the person you're talking to and you kind of shared the same story to each other. It was quite funny.
Okay, cool. Then let's get to the topic at hand. Um, We talk about perfectionism today. Let me, okay, recording has started. Up, let's see if we can put this away. Okay, let's, hang on a second. I'm having some technical issues here. Wait, okay, okay, no, this down. So, okay, I will just talk a little bit about perfectionism, what it is. Um, I'm using a PowerPoint, but I'm not gonna show you the PowerPoint. You get it later, like tomorrow. I just don't want you to like look at the PowerPoint all the time. Just like, listen to what I say. I think that's more fun and that's more interesting, instead of just like reading what is written there. Um, okay. So Perfectionism. Perfectionism is basically defined by three things. The three most important characteristics of perfectionism is number one, the pursuit of extremely high standards. Number two, a rigid adherence to these standards without regard for the negative consequences. Okay. And number three, a success-dependent self-esteem that is reliant on the success in relation to these standards. Um, we'll talk about different aspects of perfectionism today, just to give you like a broad summary of what this is. And as you might notice later when you talk to people, people have very different um, like details how like people are perfectionists in certain ways. Um, maybe if you have if you did the questionnaire, there were like different aspects of perfectionism that we could see, and you will see that people have gave very different answers, as a matter of fact. Um, so there's basically three types of perfectionism globally. One is social perfectionism. This is the fear of failing in the eyes of others, which is not so common. Then you have a self-oriented perfectionism. That is what most people have. That is the fear of failing oneself. And then there's a really strange one, which I don't think I've ever met someone who had that. It's called other-oriented perfectionism. It's the fear that others do not meet one's own standards. It's a very interesting subform of perfectionism. Perfection is something that is heavily on the rise all over the world, at least in like the first world. Um, it has increased, like there's like research being done over the last couple of decades, and it has increased a lot in the last like decades. They say there's like a roughly like 35% increase in perfectionism among students compared to 30 years ago. So it's something that is developing a lot. There's probably different reasons for why that is. I think just the world has become more competitive, yeah, economically. It's not so like schmoozy anymore. And I guess that's one why people have to like prepare their kids, because in the end, perfectionism usually comes from the way you are brought up. And I don't know if you have reflected on this a little bit. Some of you probably read the essay about Teresa. And in this essay, I go into a little bit in a very extreme form where like some perfectionism comes from. It is linked to self-esteem, very much so. We'll get to the topic of self-esteem in March. But this is just like to give you a little preview. Um, Very often, perfectionism comes from some sort of demanding parents and raised with a strong focus on achievement. I think that is the reason why it has increased, because people just want their kids to succeed. This has become much more important all over the world, in Europe, in the United States, in Asia, in India. I think that's also something that I see a lot. And combined with a harsh parenting style, high standards can become problematic because children learn that their worth is based on performance. You see this very clearly in like the essay that I shared with you. Um, and other people come from a very different background. Also, when you come from a very chaotic or violent home, you can also develop some sort of high self-expectation as a coping strategy. Like in the sense, when I do everything perfectly, no further harm will happen to me. Um, just very briefly where this generally comes from. Um, Most people, I think, especially I've noticed at the Goethe Institute, a lot of students that I've had do have some sort of perfectionism, but it never gets to like a clinical, where it's like relevant, where you should like see a therapist. Yeah. But it's still like, I think, a factor for many, many people. And it can have very unpleasant like symptoms that you feel on the inside. And I think some of you mentioned that in the questionnaire. So this one aspect is like what happens on the inside, and then the second aspect is what kind of behaviors does it evoke? Um, so let's have a look at like those two things, just a couple of things. And actually, I'm gonna share my screen for that, um, just so you see a little bit. Okay, also, okay. Um, So just a couple of aspects, and they were all represented in the questionnaire. Yeah. Number one, error sensitivity, a heightened focus on mistakes where even small errors are experienced as emotionally significant. You might recognize some of them as something that you have yourself, or you're just like, what, really? That is not an issue for me. Yeah. So it's everyone is a little different here. Just like see I want you to like, okay, remember like the words. Maybe that, oh, this applies to me. There's like certain words attached to this. The next one is a deficit focus, which is a tendency to focus very much so on what is missing and what you cannot do instead of focusing what is already working and what you're good at. Yeah, that is, I think, something people here are very familiar with. Yeah, especially in language learning, we always look at what we don't know. Yeah, and we never look back and see, oh, actually, look how far I've come. It's just like, oh, how far do I still have to go? And that's the depressing part. Avoidance. Um, it's you just avoid certain situations, social situations at work, in private life, where you feel evaluated or that cause you discomfort, and obviously with the goal to protect yourself from those negative feelings. Um, the next one would be procrastination. That is something that really surprised me, that sometimes people just wouldn't do their homework. And I was like, you are really an engaged student. You love to do things. Why are you not doing your homework? And it's like, well, I just couldn't do it as well as I thought and that's why I didn't do it at all. Yeah. That's a very, you find this with people who like work. I have a friend who like for years worked on his master thesis, like 3 years. It just wasn't good enough. Like he was like delaying and delaying and delaying. It's like, no, I can't write this. I have to wait. I have to wait there. I have to wait there. So like you procrastinating a lot. That is also like a side effect of perfectionism. Performance checking, that is something that I'm also doing, that you're monitoring and comparing your own performance with others. Um, or with your own standards. With me, for example, when I was in a language class, I would always compare myself to other people, which is not helpful. Yeah, if you base your self-worth on like how other people are doing. I'm the best in class, great, I'm feeling good. I'm the worst in class, I feel like shit. Yeah, so that is called performance checking. You all the time like, okay, calibrating, okay, where am I? Where are the others? Where am I relative to the others? Am I doing well or not? Consumes a lot of mental energy. And the last one is a so-called self-standard discrepancy. Um, the feeling that there's a gap between where you are and where you should be, and that you don't really take into account that you're progressing. You're just feeling it's not good enough. Yeah, and it's never good enough. That is called a self-standard discrepancy. This is just the most important aspect of perfectionism. Um, and I have here just try to put like they all in a circle, like the cycle of perfectionism, and they all lead to one another. And I think, let's have a look at this. Let's see if you guys are familiar with some aspects of it, the whole thing. And it starts just with the belief that you're not good enough. That's where it starts. Yeah, I'm not good enough the way I am. Then you exert pressure on yourself. If I try hard enough and do the right thing, I can finally be good enough. This pressure then is like to like, can I get to those impossibly high standards? Last week we were talking about the Deutschberg with the how important is it for us to speak perfect German? What even is perfect German? And we'll get later to the fact, do we maybe try to have, do we, a lot of us, do we have like impossibly high standards when it comes to speaking language? How good is good enough? Yeah. If we have those really high standards, then we will very quickly fail because they're impossibly high. So there's a very high chance that we fail, or that we fail, that we perceive that we're failing, which then leads to self-blame and self-criticism. Yeah, which is like on the inter, like the really annoying part. Like I'm criticizing yourself, you're not good enough. What are you doing? You're not like doing enough, which then can lead to avoidance because you want to like avoid that feeling of self-criticizing and failure. Then you like start avoiding certain situations. Because you avoid, then you have some negative consequences in your life, either real ones or imagine, because like, okay, because I don't do this, in the end, I will not able to do this. And then because you're avoiding, you're staying at home, and then you shaming yourself again, and you experience that shame that you are probably not good enough, and it's not good enough what you're doing. That is like in a nutshell, a little bit the cycle, the perfectionist cycle, um, for us as German speakers, but also in real life. Whatever your standards are, whatever, like you have your perfectionism. Um, we will do with a partner, ideally, actually, let me uh, now we just with a just talk a little bit about, okay, let's go look at, okay, partner discussion with one other person. Um, Question number one, I will give you the questions and I will give you also the cycle as a PDF. Okay, so you can discuss it, you can have a look at it while you are in the breakout room. Um, do you recognize the cycle of perfectionism in your own experience of speaking of learning German? At which point in the cycle do you struggle the most? And three, um, in your discussion, you may also refer to Teresa's story in the essay and the perfectionism questionnaire. Yeah, so just talk about a little bit your own experience. Where are you? What are your issues? Explain this a little bit because everyone is different in a very surprising way. I think I'm always like blown away how people are different in this respect. Um, okay, let me. Um, okay, any questions? Any comments? Nope.
Mm.
Okay. This first part was just a little bit, okay, where are we? What is going on? What are the terms for this? And the rest of the session is now focused, trying to focus, okay, what can we actually do about this? That is naturally the much more complicated part. Yeah. Um, Obviously, we cannot solve this issue in 90 minutes. Yeah, it's like a longer process, but I'm hoping to give you some ideas what can be done, some like avenues you can walk down on. I also have some literature prepared at the end that might help you. It's a longer process. And the first thing, the first goal that will, I think you should have is it's the bad news. You will not get rid of this. Yeah. Perfectionism is not something that you can get rid of. That is not how it works. Um, you cannot just say, okay, I'm not a perfectionist anymore. That is not possible. So the goal that we are striving for is something that is called psychological flexibility. And there is a school of therapy which is called acceptance and commitment therapy, which is pretty new. It's, it has come out in the last, let's say, like 15 years. It's a cognitive behavior therapy, but like a new third generation of them. And it consists of six core processes. And I'll just walk you through this just to give you an idea, like on which different points we can tackle this issue. We'll get more concrete later. First, I just want to give you an idea what are possible ways of tackling this issue in a more abstract way. And I'll show you it's called the ACT hexaflex, and I'll take it from there. Okay, it's just this is more like a little abstract now, but follow me. I'll get into the weeds of this in a second. Okay. There you have the hexaflex. Okay, what you see in black is what we want, psychological flexibility. What you see in red is the opposite, or what we don't want. Yeah, or where we are maybe at the moment. And I'll start with the name of it is acceptance and commitment therapy, ACT. Um, and we start with acceptance on the left. And you see, the opposite of acceptance is experiential avoidance. So acceptance, the first step is we want to accept what is there. And we want also we have those inner reactions and we want to allow them to be present. And we're not trying to avoid them, we're not trying to suppress them or to eliminate them because we cannot really do this. It's not how it works. If we put it away too strongly, it will come back in some other way. So the first step is acceptance, to make room for discomfort instead of fighting it. Yeah. When there's something comes up and comes up and comes up and we fight and fight and fight, it will not go away. So instead of fighting it, we'll just make it room and accept that it's there. That is not resignation. Yeah. Um, it's just choosing not to waste energy on fighting experiences that you cannot really fight. They just naturally arise when speaking German. So step number one is acceptance. That's one aspect. First process. Number two is cognitive diffusion. We just go down a little bit. What is that? That's a funny term. The term of fusion means that we and our thoughts are one. And diffusion is a particular way of relating to thoughts. And instead of taking our thoughts literally or automatically, that we fuse with our thoughts and feelings, we diffuse and take like a distance to it. And so we take those thoughts with a distance. We observe them from a distance and just get curious about the way we feel. Yeah. That's a really interesting term. I find I use this today a little bit more. So just diffusion means just distance between how you feel and yourself. Yeah, that you just I am not what I think and I am not what I feel. There's more to me. We talked about this in the workshop about the self-esteem workshop in October a little bit. That brings us to the next, which is the self as context. It's the same idea that the self is, I'm just a part of me. I am not me. I mean, I am me, but there's more to me than what is happening and what I'm thinking in my head. The voice that I hear, the feelings that I have, that is just a part of the totality of who I am. So the self as context describes the ability to experience yourself as the observer of thoughts and feelings and reactions. And maybe you recognize a little bit here how like the meditation aspect comes in. You just have these feelings and you show curiosity to those feelings instead of like fighting them and like want to get rid of them. You just show you're curious about them and you explore them a little bit. And when you understand that you are context, the self is context and not content, then this helps you to recognize that the difficulties that you have, they are just experiences and it's not an identity. Yeah, it's just something that happens to you and that can be changed, but that is not you. Yeah, it's just happening inside of you. Um, the fourth one is the present. And this is about being present, about present moment awareness. And it refers to the ability to be mentally present from moment to moment, which is really difficult. We always struggle with this. And it's not about worrying about past mistakes. I did this all the time when I was speaking. I always sometimes worry about that I said something wrong. And then it's like, I'm like in my head for like 10 seconds, I'm like, you made a mistake. And so it's not worrying about the past and it's not worrying about the future. Yeah. So it's not what I said earlier was wrong or I will make the next mistake soon. It's just like staying in the moment. And whenever those thoughts about the future or the past arise, you just acknowledge them, you hear them, and you ignore them, which also I think needs a certain amount of practice. Then we come to the values. And the values is you can choose them freely. You have to like, it's something that you choose, like, this is what I want to work towards, where I want to go. Yeah. They reflect what a person wants to stand in life or as a German speaker. Um, and yeah, they like freely chosen directions. And then we have the committed action, which is they refer to the inner decision to take action guided by values. Yeah, even when discomfort, fear, or perfectionism show up. So the values and the committed action is like your compass. Where do you want to go? And your volition that you get up to like go to those values. And yeah, those are basically the six processes that ACT suggests in order to deal um, with any situation, basically. But I think in perfectionism, this is particularly helpful. I think one major issue, and I come now back to the acceptance, I think one major issue is that perfectionists have a very strong, what in ACT they call a control agenda. People want to control everything. And even when people come to like see a coach or a therapist, they always want to control everything. And I think, and what ACT preaches and what I think is really true, the more you want to control something, the less it will go away and the more problems it will cause. So ACT even says control is the problem, not the solution. And I think that is a very tough pill to take for a perfectionist that, like, okay, the solution for me is less control, not more. It's a little counterintuitive, but let's see how we can do this. So the control agenda is the belief that inner experiences must be controlled, reduced, or eliminated for us as people, as human beings, to function well. And I think there's a certain, hang on, let's stop sharing this. I think there's a certain stress or like pressure from like our society these days that everyone has to feel well all the time. Yeah, it's like, no, you have to do like this. I mean, they even have like a name for it, like toxic positivity, which is like you have to feel great. Everything is fantastic. When you have a bad experiences, you have to work to overcome them. You have to get rid of them, go to therapy, and you feel great again. And I think that is for a lot of people just not feasible. I think not for anyone. Yeah, everyone feels bad at some point, and it's just sometimes okay to do it. Um, when I was younger, I would really enjoy when I was like a little, I was like down for like a day or two, and I was just like write really depressing poems. I was like, okay, yeah, let's just use this mood to write really depressing poems. So I'm like productive when I feel like shit. I think there's just different moods that we have. We just have to accept them instead of like fighting them at any cost. Um, because this view suggests implicitly that psychologically healthy people are able to control their inner experiences and achieve emotional stability by removing negative thoughts and feelings. And I think that's just not possible. ACT does not believe this is possible, and ECT even believes that is counterproductive because inner experiences cannot be controlled. They just cannot be controlled. It's just like we just can't. It's impossible. And the attempt to eliminate them and to ignore them usually or very often creates more suffering and more problems, not less. And in ACT, they refer to this mindset as the unworkable change agenda. And ACT wants to show ways how to relate to unpleasant experience like in a different way. By diffusion, by seeing yourself as context, by being present in the moment, by accepting. And so the question is, in order to get better, that's the counterintuitive thought, maybe we have to stop wanting to get better. Um, that's maybe also the same for in German. The harder we try to get better, maybe this is being really, really counterproductive. And we're just putting a lot of pressure on ourselves. There's no enjoyment anymore. So the first thought we have to let go is we don't want to get better anymore. That's just a suggestion. But like, think about it. It's a little counterintuitive, but we'll see if that could, yeah, if that, I don't know, like if there's something happens to you when you hear this with this control agenda. Um, okay. Um, any questions so far about this? Nope. Then I'll give you again a little, where's the chat? The chat always disappears. Oh, here. Um, I will give you the, as a, in the thing, I will give you again the hexaflex and the question we'll discuss now. Let me share this with you. Up. We go through the questions together. Um, it's this one. Okay. So we do it again with a partner. And so you were in the previous conversation, you were talking to a partner about their internal reactions you're struggling with. And and now we discuss the following questions with a partner. It's basically now, so how have you been trying to manage or counteract these inner experiences so far? So what is your control agenda? What are you like, how are you trying to like go against it? Yeah. Um, and what has this led to so far? What were the consequences of this? What were the results of you dealing with those feelings and those experiences in a certain way? And after all that you heard, what else could you maybe try? After what you just heard, what do you think could work for you? What would be like an interesting way, an interesting avenue that you should pursue in order to get out of this? Just some first ideas. I will give you some ideas later about what else you can do and about different ways of thinking about this. Okay, then I'll. Okay. Um, Let's get started with number one in the circle about the shame and that I'm not the thought that I am not good enough. And does anyone read by any chance this wonderful book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck? Anyone read that?
I've read that.
Yeah. Um, I have not read the whole thing. Moni, did you enjoy it?
Um, it was really hard for my perfectionist brain to process it because I was like, you're acting like it's too easy not to give a fuck. But even when I was reading it, I was judging myself for reading it. So yeah. But I
So
read it like 6 years ago, I think.
it's been around for like 15 years. I think it's from 2010 or so. If anyone is interested in reading it, I also have the ebook. If anyone wants to have it, I'll gladly share it. What we'll talk about now is something I took from the book. It's called The Feedback Loop from Hell. And it's basically the idea, and I'll talk about this for a couple of minutes, and then I'll let you go into the into a partner discussion again. Um, about the shame thing is that we humans are cognitive, emotional, perpetual motion machines. Does everyone know what a perpetual motion machine is? In German, we say what is it called in German? Yeah, there's another word for it, but it's basically a machine that keeps going and going and going. Yeah. And it doesn't need energy from the outside. It just goes and goes and goes and goes. Yeah. It's a self-feeding cycle and it gives energy. And I think what is special about humans is that we have this thing that we can think about our own thoughts, and our feelings trigger thoughts, and those thoughts then trigger feelings again, and we can get into a cycle. So what happens inside, and we can think about this, we can feel about this, and we can go on and on and on and on. And that is basically what Mark Manson calls the feedback loop from hell. You experience something unpleasant, anxiety, fear, self-doubt, shame. Then you judge yourself for having that internal experience. Yeah, I shouldn't feel this way. What's wrong with me? Why am I having this? And that judgment creates then more negative emotion. So you go from feeling to thought. That thought creates more emotion, more anxiety, more frustration, more shame. And then um, and you react to the new layer by trying harder to control, suppress, or escape it. That is the feedback loop from hell. That cycle intensifies because of the original feeling is now reinforced by self-criticism and by self-blaming. So that is something we would like to avoid, this feedback loop from hell. And the original thought of like this shame thing is that I am not good enough as a German speaker, and that I am not good enough as a German learner. And another thing we were talking about earlier was like the deficit, that you're just like looking at what you cannot do, where you're not good at. And what I want to do now is I want to do an exercise where we question this. Is your German, or the way you have been studying and progressing, really not good enough? That is the question we wanna have a look at. And in order to like be more realistic about this, I think usually we just talk about what is missing, what we still have to do, where we are deficient, because that is, welcome to being German. I think that is the essence of the German being, of just focusing on what is not good and just criticizing all the time. So in that respect, I think we're pretty good at being Germans. But in the next exercise, I would like you to, hang on, let me show the partner exercise with you. Up. So the partner exercise is the following. Two people, and you have to answer the question, I am a good German speaker or a German learner because. And just for like 3 minutes, 3 minutes each person, it's not a discussion. Just speak for 3 minutes why you are a terrific German speaker or terrific German learner. Just the good things. Don't criticize yourself. Don't put it in relation. Just straight up 3 minutes of positive, what is good about you. And speak honestly and realistically. Don't exaggerate. No false positivity. Say everything that comes to mind from your perspective. I am a great German speaker because. And if you find this difficult to speak 3 minutes about this, first recall positive feedback that you've received from friends, colleagues, or teachers. And every person 3 minutes, and after that you take 2 minutes to reflect together. How was it to talk in this way about yourself? What was maybe difficult or uncomfortable? And did you believe yourself? Did you actually believe yourself? Okay. Usually I do this. First, I do it with like the negative and then the positive. But I feel like everyone who signed up for this course is probably pretty strong on the negative already. So we don't focus on that. So today we just speak, why are you a great German speaker or a great German learner? And make it believable. Okay. Um, Hang on, I also put this in the chat so you can have the questions. Up, there we go. This is the exercise. And then I'll put you again in groups of two. Every person, 3 minutes. The other person who doesn't speak, stop the time. I want it to be 3 minutes. Don't stop after 10 seconds, 30 seconds. You have 180 seconds. Yeah. So really get in all the details of what a great German speaker and a great German learner you are. Okay, let's see how that goes. Okay, I see already some pretty frustrated faces. Let's you guys can do this. I believe in you. Okay. Okay. Let's get into the groups. Okay. And I'll see you in a couple of minutes. 3 minutes each. Stop the time. Okay. There we go. And I see you in a bit. Um, okay, how was that? How was talking about what a fantastic and outstanding German speaker or German learner you are? Somebody said, I would have never asked myself that question. How was it?
We were still
Mm.
talking. You cut us off.
Well, people were already done. So how was it, Moni, for you? How was it?
Really interesting. First of all, Christine is really interesting person. I really enjoyed the conversation with her. And also, like I never say my opinions about myself out loud, not even the negative ones. And it felt weird at first, but like, oh my God, she was so positive that I couldn't be negative at all. It was really fun, and I it made me like think it is okay to have good feelings about yourself. Your idea matters as well. So,
I was telling Charlie and Camille that in the summers I always work with German teachers, and they all have a C1, C2 level. They all great. Some people just like almost, native like. And they come to my classes, and I realize a lot of those people feel terrible about their German, and they go to class every day teaching German, feeling shitty about their German. And a lot of times, what I do in those classes, we just work on people's self-esteem and to make them feel better about themselves. And one of those exercises I always do is this, and they have to talk longer about this. And a lot of people's like, I was listening to myself uninterrupted, and I was only allowed to say good things about myself. And I things came out, and it was great to hear that from myself
true.
that I have these beliefs in me. So I said the last time, for some people here, my goal is that you realize that you are good enough to stop the learning process at some point in the near future, and that you will find relief from this. If you have an A1 level, obviously that is not your goal for the next 3 months. But I think for some among you, I would like this to happen, that you just realize I'm totally fine the way I am. This is great enough. Everything I can do, what I want to do, I actually can. My issue is not my German, but it's everything around it. Um, so that is something I would like to see in the next couple of weeks and a couple of months. Um, Anyone else wants to share their experience?
I can share a little.
Marcus or Igor?
I'm sorry if it's someone already
Who
started.
was Igor? Go ahead.
Okay. So it was quite difficult in the beginning, but if you want to start to focus to recall some positive like events or especially feedback of friends or people I talk about my German, that I realized, yeah, there are actually good things because usually I don't take focus on the positive stuff at all. So it's like it was really like a different point of view to like once in a while to actually think, maybe I'm not so bad, sort of thing. I I I really enjoyed the process. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Igor. Anyone else? Dimitris is laughing really hard. Dimitris, what's going on? Why are you laughing so hard?
No, for me, it was the recognition that if your teacher told you that you are a good, or like that somebody else on the class told you that you are good in something, yeah, it was something that I realized that, yeah, it's not something that I hear so often. Like, uh, yeah, good job or uh, let's move on and all that stuff.
And sometimes when we hear it, we don't believe it. We just like say, ah, come on, that's not true. Whatever. So people tell us, we just don't listen. We just don't want to hear it. Igor, you want to say something?
I agree with that, and also experience all the times like when someone like says something positive feedback and you start to argue back, like, no, you're wrong. I know better than I'm not as good or something. It's weird when you start to completely like disregard it, like, no, 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 of course not. Like that's all lies. And when
So
someone actually says,
intention for the future. We'll talk next week more about positive emotions, positive psychology. Intention for the future, whenever somebody makes you a compliment about your German, take it. Ask for more. Let him explain it. Let him go into details. Why are you so good? Yeah, we need this. And just like really accept when people do this. It's a gift. And we always like just block it. It's like, no, 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 that's not true. Actually, just believe what people say. I think it's a really good intention. Just believe those people. Um, okay, then let's go on to the next thing, and I'll take you in my into the presentation because it's getting a little more complicated now. We're gonna talk about the high standards now. There was the number one, shame, which is the basis of everything. The belief I am not good enough as a German speaker, as a German learner. I think that is where like the whole cycle starts. Um, this was like one way of like getting to it. The second is now we're tackling the high standards, and we're gonna get to the tragic dilemma of the German speaking perfectionist. Let's see what I mean by this. Okay, I'll share my screen with you all. Um, Okay, let's look into the high standards. Just a quick reminder, the core features of perfectionism, as we laid them out at the very beginning, was the pursuit of extremely high standards. Second, a rigid adherence to these standards. And number three, a self-esteem that is reliant on success in relation to these standards. So the standards, like the high, impossible standards, are at the very core of like the perfectionist existence. So why is this particularly tricky when we speak a foreign language? Um, in therapy, perfectionism is usually addressed, and when you speak with like therapists specialized in perfectionism, the number one goal they have is making standards more flexible. That is the most important thing that therapists do with like people that have a pathological perfectionism. Well, what is the problem with the standards that we have as German learners? And of course, the high standards are the grammar rules. That is the Bible. Yeah. And what is the dilemma then? The dilemma is that we cannot make those standards, those rules flexible. They just exist. There is no way of saying, oh, you know what? For me, the past tense, I don't really use it. It doesn't exist for me. I don't need this. That doesn't work. It's there. The grammar rules are fixed. And we cannot make them flexible. And I think that is what I call the tragic dilemma of the perfectionist language learner. It's like you cannot make those rules flexible. So there's no real, we cannot tackle those standards directly. So we have to come up with a workaround. And this workaround is how do we get out of this tragic dilemma of the perfectionist language learner? And a couple of thoughts on this. Number one, in theory, grammar rules in language classes are meant to help you. The reason they are originally taught is not to like make life miserable for you, but they are taught in order to help you express yourself. That is the whole reason why they are taught in class. Um, and I think some people understand that, and some people have a really hard time with this, and they take those rules as like something really, really like absolute. And I want to give you, maybe some of you have heard the story before. And I want to tell you just a quick story about this Italian student of mine I once had. Um, let me Um, so I once had this Italian student. She was like in her 50s already. She was a German teacher and a teacher in Germany, and she had been living in Germany for like 15 years. And she had to pass the C1 exam. And when I met her, she could not say a single phrase without making at least two mistakes. And she had like she was working as a teacher and she had like a C2 level and she she took the exam and she passed 3 out of 4 paths. And she passed the speaking exam with 60 out of 100. That is the absolute minimum point that you need to pass. And it's a funny coincidence that she had exactly 60. Why did she get exactly 60? She did not have the level to pass this exam. Why did she pass the exam? Because she was a force of nature. This woman didn't care a shit about making mistakes. She would just talk. She was so engaging. She was so funny. She was so charismatic. And everyone just liked her. I loved her. And she never made a correct sentence in her life. And she will never make a correct sentence in her life, which is fine. She eventually passed all the C2 exams and she can now work as a teacher in Germany. Not as a German teacher, but as a teacher. And what I think she didn't play by the rules, she played by her own rules. And I thought that was really inspiring in a certain way. So she was just like, okay, those rules don't count for me. Yeah, they just count in general, but not for me. That's the way number one to do this. So, but that is, I think, not most people's experience here. So let's go on with this. And hang on a second. Um, For many perfections learners, however, these rules, the grammar rules, turn into a fetish, yeah, or a prison, yeah. For example, der, die, das. It's crazy, and Tim was talking about this earlier. It's crazy how many people believe that der, die, das is actually important. Nobody cares. Like nobody gets a rat's ass if it's der, die, or das. But people drive themselves nuts at the very beginning of learning all the articles. You have to know it. And I'll tell you an example. You know that in English it's the, right? The. Yeah. A lot of German speakers, especially in southern Germany, in Switzerland, in Austria, they just say the. They don't say der, die, or das. They just say the. Yeah. So it's only, and they don't say einen, they just say yeah, which you might recognize from English. It's the, in German, it's the, and a in German into yeah. So you see how English is just the better version, and a lot of dialect speakers don't realize the difference when they speak. Yeah, it's really fascinating. In Swiss German, there is no eine. It's just yeah. And I think I don't like to admit it, but maybe in this case, the Swiss are right. Just maybe learning from the Swiss for once might be a good idea. I'm just telling you this, like, look at the beginning of the articles and not at the end. Yeah, it's just important is it's I or the. I or the. That's the important part. What comes after this? Nobody cares. Yeah, I'll do in February. I'll get more into little bit. It's when it comes to grammar rules, you have to choose your battles. Focus on what matters. Articles just don't matter. They carry a lot of grammatical information that they do not carry any communicative meaning. Yeah. So you have to focus, and we'll get into this later, focus on the things that carry communicative meaning and not grammatical detail. Yeah. Um, and yeah, I always tell people this, and like people's like, no, but the first 3 months of like learning German, I only focused on der, die, das. I was like, holy fuck, this sounds like a nightmare. Yeah, don't do this. Have fun. There's so much more interesting thing going on in the German language than that. So you cannot flexibilize those rules, but you can make more flexible is your relationship to those rules. Yeah, how you take them for granted or for absolute. And it is especially important, and now we get to like the crux of this discussion. It is um, how strongly they are treated as your guiding principle of speaking, and above all, when. When do you actually care about rules, and when do you not care about rules? Yeah. So number one, what is your relationship? Make this relationship a little bit more flexible. And second, we'll take into account when is a good time to worry and to focus on those rules, and when is not a good time. Because when we decide when we decide when to focus on those rules, we can redefine what is success and what is failure. Um, I think the number one issue that a lot of people have is they focus all the time on accuracy. And they're like completely absorbed by this thing. I have to speak correctly. I have to speak well. And I think in doing so, since you can never adhere to those impossibly high standards, the grammar rules, you set yourself up for constant failure. Yeah. And the failure is on several levels. The failure of like not being able to respect those rules. The one is linguistically, you will always make mistakes. Yeah. The next one is the constant failure on the terms of self-esteem, because if you declare those rules to be paramount and you will never you it's impossible to respect them, this will leave like a massive dent in your self-esteem. And the third would be you are failing on a communicative level. You're not being a good communicator. Yeah, when you focus all the time on this accuracy. Um, so to change this experience of perceived failure, we need to change what success means when speaking a foreign language. Yeah. Um, and success for us, and Tim was alluding to this early on, success is not perfect accuracy. Success is being understood and understanding others, or at least showing others that you understand them. Yeah, it's on those two levels. The goal is to keep the conversation going when we are in a communicative environment. Yeah, so this is the number one goal, and this is the only thing I believe we should focus on when we talk the foreign language outside the classroom. Yeah, keep the conversation going at all costs, because the more you speak and the more real conversations you have, the better you get. It's as simple as that. Yeah. Once you have the basis. We were talking last time a little bit about acquiring a language, that you all need this. But once you go to the coming out, it is only about practice, practice, practice. And the practice you get, you have to like get in conversation. You have to stay in the conversation. When the conversation is over after 5 minutes, you got 5 minutes of practice. When the conversation goes on for 3 hours, you got 3 hours of practice. I think that's pretty obvious. So in order to get there, maybe we have to deploy two different mindsets going into situations. And depending on which situation, we deploy either the one mindset or the other one. And both mindsets are, I think, important to improve. Yeah, they do different things. And the first mindset is what I call the practice mindset. Yeah. So before we go into a conversation, we basically choose in which mode I'm tackling this situation. Yeah. And I don't know if you ever thought about this way, but I think this is a really helpful a way of thinking about going in different conversations. Yeah. What kind of mode am I in? What kind of mindset am I in? And the practice mindset is something that is used to improve and advance into the zone of proximal development. I don't know if you've ever heard this term. It's basically in the middle is what you can do. And then you have this zone of proximal development. This is what you can do with some help and some guidance. And when you get corrected, when you have help, when somebody supports you, yeah. So in a practice mindset, the goal is to expanding into that zone of proximal development, of getting better as far as the accuracy goes, linguistically. Yeah. Um, this typical situations where you have this practice mindset is language classes, obviously, is when you have a tandem. When you like meet somebody on a regular basis to speak, that is a practice mindset there. At a Deutschstammtisch, if you just go somewhere where like it's like, okay, we're all practicing here. Or any other situation where it was agreed to provide assistance. Yeah, where you with a tutor or like you have a friend who's like, okay, help me every once in a while when I speak, wherever it was agreed that this is a practice environment. And the characteristics of this practice mindset is it's about taking risks. Because in order to want to get better, you have to do things that you're not really 100% sure about. So when you're in this mindset, you are taking risks, knowing that I'm using something I'm not really sure about because I get assistance and I get feedback. An important thing to keep in mind when you are in the practice mindset and you tell people to correct yourself is maybe it's good to know the difference between a performance error and a competence error. And what happens is a lot of people who are not professional teachers or even professional teachers, they will correct performance errors. A performance error is when you speak and you make a mistake. You actually know how it is or how it goes, but you make a mistake because you have to produce. Yeah, in German we also call this ein Produktionsfehler. Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of people will correct those. That's very not helpful. Yeah, this is not what you want. You want people to correct actually competence errors where you make mistakes because you just don't know what is correct. Yeah, so maybe when you are in this mindset, make sure that people correct your competency and not your performance. Yeah, one thing I think is important to have in mind because a lot of people, when you tell them to correct you, they will just correct mistakes that you probably already know or you can't, you didn't have the time to think about. So I think that's a really helpful differentiation. And when you are in the practice mindset, you take the person you're speaking with as your Freund and Helfer. I don't know if you know this phrase. The Nazis framed this term for like the police. They would call it die Polizei, dein Freund und Helfer. Yeah, it has stuck with Germans ever since, and we still talk about the police as our friend and helper. Yeah. So the person you're speaking with is your Freund und Helfer. They are not an authority. They are not evaluating you, they're just helping you. So whenever you're in the practice mindset, that is how you should go about this, how you should think about this. And I think a lot of problems arise when people bring this practice mindset into situations where it's not warranted. And especially people that learn German, they tend to like go into a lot of situations with at least a partially mindset. And that can have a lot of negative effects. Um, so let's come to the opposite, which would be the communication mindset or the listener-centered speaking approach. That is what I if you read the essay, this is what at the very ending of the essay, I'll get into the listener-centered speaking approach. If you have not read the essay yet, I'm inviting you to read it as homework. I think it's a really touching story. So check it out if you have the time to read it. It's in my last email. It's a story about Teresa. And basically, I just go quickly through what I mean by this listener-centered speaking approach. It's basically instead of focusing our perfectionism on our own accuracy, we focusing our perfectionism on the experience the other person has talking to us with the goal of maximizing the time that the person wants to spend talking with us. And in order to do this, we have to, fluency is over accuracy. We just focus on that. We just want to speak as quickly as possible, not as much as possible, but as fluent as possible. We want to be a very pleasant, interesting person to speak with. We don't do meta communication. Yeah. Most people that talk to you in German do not want to hear about your German class or about like how you feel about this. It's just they want to have a conversation, they want to communicate. They don't want to communicate about communication or about German. Um, the worst thing I always try to get out of people when they prepare for exams, like oral exams, is self-correction. Don't correct yourself. It's already understood. Nobody needs to know that you know what is correct. Yeah, you just do this for yourself. You're not helping the other person. They probably understood you. Yeah, so you're saying the same thing twice. There's no communicative value to correcting yourself. High speaking pace. Speak as quickly as possible. Remember my Italian friend. Yeah. No correct sentence in her life, but extremely charismatic. People wanted to talk to you. It was a delight to talk to this woman. Yeah. It was driving me nuts because my German speaker mind was always correcting her. But but don't let you it says, try to overcome word finding pauses. There's you will find at the essay, you will find some more thoughts about this. There's like, what do I need to be a good communicator? How can I enhance the other person's experience of talking to me? Maybe we have never like thought enough about this. Um, Nonverbal resources. Use your face, use your hands, use everything you have to make yourself understood. And the most difficult thing of all, humor in the face of your own shortcomings. When people make jokes about you, it is difficult, but I think it's important that we are able to laugh about our own shortcomings. I am the first person to admit that I'm having a very hard time with this. When I speak French or Spanish, English is okay, but French or Spanish, I make mistakes and people point something out, I get like a little irritated. But it's like an intention of like accepting the compliments. It's also accepting your own shortcomings. And like when people laugh about it, you just laugh with them, even though if on the inside you're crying. Um, and draw boundaries is also really important to protect yourself. We get a little bit more into this at some other time. Okay, I think that was a lot to digest. So I put you in groups of three now, and three questions. Number one, how do you feel about the tragic dilemma of the perfectionist language learner? Number two, what is your view on the distinction between a practice mindset and a communication mindset? And number four, which aspects of the listener-centered speaking approach do you find especially helpful or relevant for you? Okay, let me stop this here. I give you the questions in the chat. Where's the chat? Here it is. There you go. Yep. Okay, yep. Just a minute. Okay, here's the group discussion. And groups of three. And yeah, let's say 5, 6 minutes. And then after that, we wrap up. I see you in 5, 6 minutes.
Sorry,
Okay?
Ingo,
Yes.
could you also provide the definition, the slides that were before with the little, for
Uh,
example, description of listener-centered
yeah,
speaking
yeah.
approach?
I'll send them over
Like
the
a
chat.
screenshot just in a
I'll
second.
send them over the chat in a second. I'll put you in the group and then
Yep.
I'll send that to you. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, because I have to like cut it out of the PDF first. Okay, I'll put you in the groups. Where is it? What? That was the wrong one. Okay, neu erstellen. We'll do 5. Okay, I see you in a couple of minutes. Um, Any last thoughts on the conversation you had? Any questions about the practice mindset, the communication mindset, the listener-centered approach? Any comments, any questions, whatever you want to say?
Mhm.
Everyone's pretty beat. Igor, yes, go ahead.
it was in general were very deep and dense, but also the last part, I think it would require some more like post that thinking and like reading again because I didn't had like fully get all of these points because it was like a lot of information in the end, I think, and like it will take some time after to recall again and to think more about what was it about. But it was taking the first perception was very useful. It is very useful. Yeah, thanks.
I mean, it is, there are no easy solutions for this. And I think I early on I watched some like YouTube videos on like perfectionism and language learning, and I was just like, you gotta be shitting me. Like you think you can sit down and make like a 7-minute video calling it all you need to know to overcome perfectionism and language learning? I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. You cannot pack this in 7 minutes. There is no way. You have to tackle this issue, I think, from so many different angles. Yeah. And that's what I'm trying to do today. I just give you like a whole, like, okay, what to focus on. It is a journey. And I think it's like there's a lot of different things involved. And I hope that by showing you, giving you a lot of ideas today of workarounds, redefinition of what success means. Yeah. Um, Thanks, Christina. It is a journey, and there's I think there's an easy solution for it. I hope I gave you some ideas. And yeah, Camille, comment or question.
Yeah, no question, just a remark. First of all, when you were talking about how we learn German with all the grammar rules and everything, it just made me realize that when I started to learn German, I was so in school, and I don't know how it is in the other country, but in France, you are just really so focused on the grammar and everything because we absolutely want, our sentences to be so français, everything. And we learn English or any other language the same way. And it's just like, it's not fun at all for
Yeah.
any kids, It's just like you have to do the same way you learn French. And well, years after, when I started again to learn English, because I had to, and German for fun because I wanted to, I just realized, hey, learning a new language can be fun. It's okay. It's not big deal. And in this group tonight, and I just realized that it can be fun. And I mean, I know also my English is not perfect, but I think
Who
people
cares?
understand what I say, and that's okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Camille. And I think you're absolutely right. Like in a lot of schools, a lot of classes, like it just gets spoiled for people. And so yeah, we'll I think on tomorrow we have this, and I invited some of you, which I think this applies to. Tomorrow we have a subgroup meeting with like for people who've been in Germany for a while and who feel like who haven't really found the fun or like who lost the fun of learning and speaking German. Um, I invited some of you into that group. If you want to come tomorrow, just come by, just swing by. You're all welcome. And let's have a quick look at what happens next week. Next week we'll talk about resilience and what resilient means in the context of learning and speaking German. What we did today is also about resilience, but we're going to look into the role of positive and negative emotions, and we can look a little bit how positive psychology can help with learning German. So if you enjoyed the positive aspects of today, the 3 minutes of why you are a terrific German learner, German speaker, we'll have more of that next week. And I have a favor to ask. If you have not filled out the questionnaire about perfectionism, if you have 5 minutes to do it, please do it. It helps me because I record all of this. I collect a lot of data on everyone, not because I'm the heir of the German Stasi, but just to know which issues you are struggling with. I have all this, so before I talk with you, I will look into this and I have a better picture of what is going on in your learning process. So please do this, and I will send you an essay by Sam Harris, and it's about public speaking, which in a way, if we speak German, it is always in a little bit of a public speaking. I don't have anything on resilience yet, but I think that essay might be an interesting read. It relates to speaking in front of an audience, but I think it also relates a little bit to like speaking a foreign language, and I think it might be useful if you find this essay interesting. I'll forward it to you. Igor has another question or
Yeah, I'm
comment.
sorry, just a short comment that I haven't filled the questionnaire about perfectionist because of a perfectionist and and avoidance.
Yeah, you were procrastinating. It's like, oh, I can't fill it out
Exactly,
perfectly.
exactly,
Please do
exactly.
it. Please do it. It will only take like 4 minutes. Yeah, it's not a very long. Some eight, 9 people have already filled it out. You're helping me a lot. I'm really getting a better picture of everything that's going on. So next week on resilience, I will send you a recap of today with like the PDF of everything. I send that to you tomorrow, also with the recording of today, if you want to check it out. And then I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
And
you.
I hope there's
Right,
we got a
thank
lot to
you.
chew on for today. So
Yes.
think about it, and greetings from Austria to southern Germany, to Lyon, to Berlin, to Scotland, wherever you are. Looking forward to seeing you all next week. Have a good week. Have a good
Thanks.
weekend. I'll see you
Yeah.
soon.
Bye. See you next.
Bye,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.
Konstantinos?
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah?
Can I steal 5 minutes of your time
Okay.
and go?
Sure, of course. I specifically invited you to do so. Hang on, let me